In this video, I'm going to provide you with 4 ways how to give advice in English and sound natural and polite at the same time. In the end, you'll be able to give a piece of advice using modal verbs, conditionals and would constructions, questions, and of course idioms. Let me begin with the reason why there are so many ways to give advice. I mean, it's advice, right? The word advice will be totally overused in this video. So, it's just advice. How hard can it be? Well, let's take a look at some example. You must take a taxi.
What do you mean must?
I'd recommend you to take a taxi. Public transport can be unreliable at times. Oh, thank you. Very nice of you to give me the heads up. Have you noticed the difference? It's not only what you say, but also how you say it that matters. And yet, when learning English, we tend to spend unreasonably little attention to polite and respectful communication, especially when it comes to being a part of an intercultural environment. Many of my students make a mistake of not taking into account the cultural difference between them and their colleagues, business partners and clients, which might unfortunately bring to strong misunderstanding between the parties. The latest confusion a student of mine faced was her interlocutor taking offense at her too straightforward requests to hurry up and meet the deadline. Because my student translated the message directly from her native language and didn't think about how it could be perceived. Okay, let's get straight to the topic. Let me just point out here that it's totally okay just to use should as a way of giving advice. However, there are so many options to spice up our speech, so why not use them? We use should or shouldn't, should not is the full form, to give advice or to say that something is not a good idea in the present or in the future. You should think carefully before you make such an important decision. You shouldn't take that course, it's a waste of time. If we want to give advice in the past, we can use the construction should have followed by the past participle. I just wasted my time there, I should have listened to you. Ought to is another modal verb for giving advice or recommendations in English. It's similar in the meaning with should, and they can often be used interchangeably in different contexts. He ought to apologize for his rude behavior. The negative form is ought not to. You ought not to spend all your money on unnecessary things. To use ought to in the past, we follow the same structure we did with should. Had better is a modal verb used to give stronger advice or warning about specific actions or behaviors. It implies that there will be negative consequences if the advice is not followed. Can be used for the present or the future. Had better is followed by the base form of the verb. You had better study hard if you want to pass the exam, or you'd better as a short form. The negative form will be you had better not or you'd better not forget to submit your assignment on time. Almost forgot. Could is a nice way to give a polite suggestion or advice in English. It suggests a possibility or an option without imposing a strong obligation. It is often used in polite and friendly context. She could join a language exchange program to improve her speaking skills. If I were you is a common and effective way to give advice in a friendly manner. If I were you, I would apologize to a friend for what happened yesterday. We sort of put ourselves in our listeners' shoes and provide recommendation based on what we would do in this situation. It's important to remember that while it's grammatically correct to say was instead of were in informal context, were is considered more formal and appropriate in written English. There are also a few constructions with would, which are a common and polite way to give recommendations in English. Using them, we can make suggestions without sounding too straightforward. The constructions are I would recommend or I would suggest. Now, it's interesting that there are several sentence patterns for these verbs. If we give advice about some activity without naming the recipient, we say I would recommend doing something. I would recommend going to bed early tonight. We're having an important presentation tomorrow. However, if we mention the person to whom we give advice, the construction will be I would recommend you to do something. I would recommend you to speak with a financial advisor before making any decisions. Using question phrases can be an effective way to engage the listener and kindly push them to consider different options. Besides, it doesn't even sound like advice, more of an invitation for a discussion. Here are some examples of commonly used question phrases. How about setting aside time each week for a hobby that you enjoy? What about? What about reaching out to a career counselor regarding your job search? Why don't you? Why don't you consider delegating some tasks? Have you thought about joining some local speaking club? Have you tried creating a daily schedule to organize your tasks? We have covered the basics of giving advice in English. Now, why don't we add some color and learn a couple of idioms? If all else fails. By this idiom, we suggest what could be done in a certain situation if all previous options turned out unsuccessful. If all else fails, we could just order Chinese for dinner. Save your breath. It means don't waste time trying to explain something. Lori, save your breath. They are not going to listen to us. Get your act together. Prepare or organize yourself to do something effectively. Our team's performance was below expectation. We need to get our act together and create some more efficient strategy. Keep your chin up to remain optimistic in a difficult situation. Even though you didn't get a promotion, keep your chin up. Your hard work will pay off eventually. Thank you for being with me this time. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe to get new videos on learning English.